Have you ever felt completely drained? Like you've been pouring your heart and energy into everyone around you, always saying yes, always being there, only to find yourself exhausted with nothing left for you? I've heard this from so many women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. Women who've spent years being the one everyone turns to, the one who's always available, always ready to help, to listen, to fix things. And I've seen how that can leave you feeling empty, like you've lost a piece of yourself in the process, like you're running on fumes, wondering why you feel so tired, so unfulfilled, even when you're doing everything right. I've spent years studying the teachings of Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychologist who understood the depths of the human psyche and the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, and I've learned a truth that can change the way you live. There's incredible power in choosing to be unavailable, in stepping back, in saying no. Because when you stop being everyone's emotional anchor, when you stop reacting to every demand, every poke, every pull, you take back your energy, you protect your peace, and you start to reclaim the life you deserve. Jung taught us that our psychic energy, the life force that fuels our thoughts, emotions, and actions, is limited, precious, and sacred. And when we give it away too freely, we leave ourselves depleted, vulnerable, and open to manipulation. But he also showed us that by setting emotional boundaries, by choosing silence over reaction, we can guard that energy. We can use it to grow, to become whole, to become the truest version of ourselves, a process he called individuation. And the Stoics echoed this wisdom, reminding us that our worth isn't in how much we give to others, but in how well we protect our own inner strength, our own peace. Especially as we age, when our time and energy become even more precious, when we long for relationships that nourish us, not ones that drain us. In this video, I'll walk you through the hidden power of unavailability, the strength that comes from silence, and the freedom that comes from setting emotional boundaries. Because this isn't about shutting the world out, it's about choosing yourself, about learning to guard your energy, about understanding that you don't have to be everything to everyone, that you can step back, that you can say no, and in doing so, you'll find a peace you've been longing for, a peace that lets you live fully, love deeply, and shine brightly without losing yourself along the way. To understand why this choice is so transformative, we first need to look at what happens when you're too available, when you're always there, always giving more than you have to give. Because being overly available isn't the virtue we've been taught it is. It's a trap, one that drains your energy, dims your light, and leaves you open to manipulation in ways you might not even see. I've spoken with so many women who've shared how they've been the go-to person for everyone in their lives, the one who's always ready to help, to listen, to make others feel better. And I've seen how that can turn you into what I call an emotional emergency button, a button that others press whenever they need comfort, validation, or attention, and then put you back on the shelf when they're done, leaving you feeling used, tired, and empty, wondering why you're always the one giving but never the one receiving. Carl Jung taught us about the persona, the mask we wear to be loved, to be accepted, to fit in, a mask that says you have to be the helper, the fixer, the one who's always there, always saying yes, even when it means saying no to yourself. Because deep down, you've been conditioned to believe that your worth lies in how much you give, how much you're there, how much you sacrifice. But Jung would tell us that this isn't love. It's self-abandonment. It's a subtle way of losing yourself, piece by piece, until there's nothing left for you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens that affects us, but how we interpret it." And when you're always available, you're sending a message that says you're predictable, that you're a tool others can use whenever they need, and that makes you a target for manipulation. Because people learn they can push your buttons, they can provoke you, they can guilt you into giving more, And you'll keep reacting, keep giving, keep draining yourself to keep the peace, to avoid rejection, to feel needed, but at what cost? You say yes to things that leave you feeling suffocated. You respond to demands that don't deserve your energy. You let others pull you into their drama, their chaos, their needs. And at the end of the day, you're left with nothing. Just a deep exhaustion, a frustration you can't explain, a sense of emptiness that lingers because you've given away your energy to people who didn't earn it, who didn't value it, who didn't see you for the incredible woman you are, but only for what you could do for them. Being too available doesn't just deplete your energy, it makes you vulnerable in ways that go deeper than you might realize. And to break free from that cycle, we need to understand what you're giving away every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you react to someone else's drama, every time you let yourself be pulled into chaos that isn't yours. A concept Jung called psychic energy, the life force that fuels your thoughts, your emotions, your very being. A force that's limited, precious, and sacred. A force you can learn to protect, to cherish, to use for your own growth and peace. I've watched women in their later years feel drained at the end of the day, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like they've been pouring themselves out for others without even realizing what they're losing because we don't understand our own energy. We don't see how every impulsive reaction, every unnecessary argument, every moment we spend trying to please someone who doesn't value us takes a piece of that energy, leaving us fragile, open to manipulation, and running on empty, wondering why we feel so lost, so ungrounded, so tired. Jung taught us that psychic energy is like a system, a reservoir that powers everything we do, think, and feel. And every time you react on impulse, every time you jump to defend yourself against a criticism that didn't deserve your attention, every time you engage in a pointless discussion just to prove you're right, you're spending that energy on things that don't nourish you, things that don't matter, things that leave you depleted instead of fulfilled. And when you let your energy leak out like this, you're not just losing strength, you're losing yourself. Until you're wondering why you feel so disconnected from the woman you used to be. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Because real strength isn't in reacting to everything, it's in choosing where your energy goes, in deciding who and what deserves your attention, your time, your heart. And that starts with observing your triggers, those moments that make you react automatically, that pull you into chaos before you even realize what's happening. Moments like when someone criticizes you and you feel the need to defend yourself, or when someone guilt trips you and you jump to fix things, or when you're drawn into a drama that isn't yours, because those are the exact places where your energy escapes, where you give it away without even knowing. But by learning to pause, to breathe, to stay silent in those moments, to ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Does this person deserve my time? Is this worth my peace? You take back your power. You create a space for yourself to heal, to grow, to thrive, a space where you're no longer a puppet on someone else's strings, but a woman who knows her worth, who knows her energy is sacred, who knows she deserves to keep it for herself, for the things that truly matter, for the life she wants to live. Being overly available doesn't just drain your energy, it makes you a target for a hidden form of manipulation. Jung called projection, a dynamic that keeps you trapped in roles you never signed up for, roles that serve others but leave you feeling used, unseen, and unvalued. Because when you're always there, always saying yes, you become a blank canvas for others to project their needs onto, a mirror for their unresolved emotions, their fears, their insecurities, the parts of themselves they don't want to face, what Jung called their shadow. And they use you to avoid looking at it, to avoid dealing with their own inner darkness. leaving you to carry the weight of their emotional baggage, a weight that was never yours to bear. I've watched this play out with the friend who only calls when they're in crisis, the partner who leans on you to solve their every problem, the family member who expects you to always be there, no matter how much it costs you, because they're not relating to you. They're relating to the idea of you, the role they've assigned you, the role of the helper, the fixer, the one who never says no. They rely on your reactions, your availability, to keep that role in place, to keep their own illusions intact. Seneca once said, "If you live according to nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to opinion, you will never be rich." And when you live according to others' opinions, when you let their projections define you, you become poor in spirit, poor in energy, poor in peace. But when you step back, when you choose unavailability, when you refuse to play the role they've cast you in, you break that cycle, you shatter their illusions, you force them to face their own shadows, their own emptiness, their own noise. And that can be uncomfortable for them, even unsettling, because they've relied on your availability to avoid themselves, to avoid the hard work of looking within. And when you stop reacting, when you stop jumping to fix things, when you stop being their emotional crutch, they might get irritated. They might accuse you of being cold or distant. They might try to provoke you just to get a reaction, just to pull you back into their game. But that's not about you. That's about their discomfort, their fear of facing themselves. And the beauty of unavailability is that it lets you step out of that game. It lets you reclaim your energy. It lets you see the truth of who deserves your time, your heart, your presence, and who doesn't. Because when you stop being a mirror for others, you start becoming a mirror for yourself, reflecting your own worth, your own strength, your own light. This act of stepping back, this choice to be unavailable, isn't just about saying no. It's about embracing a deeper, quieter strength, a strength Jung saw as one of the most powerful tools for inner transformation. Something so simple, yet so profound. Silence. Not the silence of avoidance or fear, but a conscious, deliberate silence that shifts the entire dynamic of your relationships, that protects your energy, that gives you mastery over your emotions. And I've seen how this can change everything for women who've spent years reacting, pleasing, and giving, only to find themselves drained, longing for a peace they couldn't name. I've watched women find new strength by holding their silence in moments that once would have pulled them into chaos. Moments like when someone tries to guilt you into doing more than you can, or when a friend only calls to dump their problems on you, or when a family member criticizes you to get a rise out of you. Because choosing silence in those moments isn't weakness, it's power. Because when you don't react, when you don't jump into their drama, you take away their ability to control you. You change the rules of the game they've been playing, and you give yourself the space to breathe, to think, to decide what's truly worth your energy. Jung taught us that silence isn't just an absence of sound. It's a fertile ground for clarity, a space where you can observe without being swept away. And when you stay silent, when you refuse to engage in battles that don't serve you, you start to see patterns you never noticed before. Patterns like how certain people always provoke you when they feel insecure, or how they rely on your reactions to feel better about themselves, or how they expect you to fill their emotional voids. And that clarity, that lucidity is what gives you power, because it lets you step out of their cycle. It lets you choose yourself. It lets you protect the energy that's yours to keep. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." And silence isn't just about not speaking, it's about listening. Listening to yourself, to your own needs, to your own truth. And when you do that, you stop being a puppet on someone else's strings. You stop letting their emotions dictate yours. You start to see the ways they try to pull you in. And you realize you don't have to play along, you don't have to react, you don't have to give them what they want, because your silence becomes a boundary, a shield, a quiet declaration that says, I'm not here for your chaos, I'm here for my peace. A peace that creates a space for you to heal, to grow, to find clarity, a space where you're in control of your own heart, your own energy, your own life. This choice to hold your silence, to be unavailable, isn't just about guarding your energy. It's about something even deeper. A journey Jung called individuation, a path I've found to be one of the most transformative for women who've spent decades wearing the mask of the helper, the fixer, the one who's always there. A mask that says you have to be everything to everyone, even when it means losing yourself. And I've seen how this mask can make you feel like you're living someone else's life, like you've lost touch with who you really are, with what you really want, with the woman you were meant to be. But Jung taught us that individuation is the process of peeling off that mask, of stepping away from the roles society has placed on you, of finding your own voice, your own truth, your own center, and unavailability is the first step on that journey. Because when you stop being everything to everyone, when you stop reacting to every demand, every expectation, every projection, you create a space to listen to yourself, to hear your own needs, your own desires, your own dreams, a space where you can finally ask, who am I beyond what others want me to be? Marcus Aurelius once said, to be free is to be yourself. To be yourself is to be free. And true freedom isn't about pleasing others. It's about being true to you. It's about letting go of the need to be liked, to be needed, to be everything, and instead choosing to be whole, to be authentic, to be the woman you were always meant to be. And that starts with setting boundaries, with saying no without guilt, with choosing your peace over their chaos. Because every time you say to the world, you're saying yes to yourself, you're saying yes to the journey of becoming whole. A journey that's yours to take, yours to cherish, yours to celebrate. A journey that lets you find the joy of being yourself, fully and unapologetically. Because you deserve to live a life where you're not defined by what others need from you, but by what you need from yourself. A life where you're not a mirror for their projections, but a light for your own path. A light that shines brighter with every step you take toward wholeness, toward authenticity, toward freedom. This journey of becoming whole, this choice to be unavailable, often leads to something that might feel uncomfortable at first. A kind of solitude that holds the key to your inner freedom. A solitude that isn't about isolation, but about strength. A solitude that lets you reconnect with yourself in a way you may not have done in years. Because when you start saying no, when you start setting those boundaries, you might notice a quiet kind of loneliness. A loneliness that feels heavy at first, because you might worry you're pushing people away. You might feel guilty for stepping back. You might wonder if you're being too harsh, too distant, too selfish. But I've learned that this isn't the loneliness of abandonment. It's the solitude of strength. A sacred space where you can finally hear your own voice, where you can finally see your own worth, where you can finally heal the parts of you that have been neglected for so long. Because in this solitude, you're not running from the world, you're returning to yourself. You're giving yourself the love, the care, the attention you've given so freely to others. And that's true rebirth begins. Jung taught us that individuation, the journey to wholeness, often requires this kind of solitude, a time of inner retreat where you can disconnect from the noise of the world, from the expectations, the projections, the demands. And I've seen how this solitude becomes a cleansing fire, not one that burns you, but one that purifies, that clears away the clutter, the chaos, the weight of other people's needs, so you can see what truly matters, so you can feel the peace you've been longing for, so you can rediscover the dreams, the passions, the joy that make you, you. Because when you step into this solitude, when you choose to be unavailable to what doesn't serve you, you create a space for clarity, for healing, for growth, a space where you can finally ask, what do I want? What do I need? What makes me feel alive? Seneca once said, it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And when you spend your energy on things that don't nourish you, on people who don't value you, on roles that don't fit you, you waste that precious time, that precious energy, that precious heart. But when you embrace this solitude, when you choose to be unavailable, you stop wasting what's yours. You start investing it in yourself, in the life you want to live, in the woman you want to be, a woman who's whole, who's free, who's at peace, because that's what you deserve. A life where your energy is yours to cherish, where your peace is yours to protect, where your joy is yours to create. And I want to encourage you to take that step, to say no without guilt, to be silent without fear, to choose yourself without apology, because you're worth it, because your peace is worth it, because your life is worth it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How has saying no changed your life? How has silence helped you find your strength? What does inner freedom mean to you? If this video resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe to Ageless Philosophies, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Here's to a life where you choose yourself, where you find peace in your solitude, where you shine brighter than ever before, because you're free, truly free to be you, to live fully, to love deeply, to be whole.